Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the webinar. We're giving folks a few minutes to get logged in here, and we will begin shortly. Again, good afternoon, everybody. We will begin shortly. We're just giving folks a few minutes to get logged in here before we begin. Again, good afternoon, everybody. We will begin shortly. We're just giving folks a few minutes to get logged in. Okay, it is 1:02, so why don't we go ahead and get started with our webinar. Once again, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Comprehensive Web Development and Managed Services Request for Offer pre-bid webinar for RFO number DIR-CPO-TMP-564, held this Tuesday, November 1st at 1:00 p.m. Central Time. On the next slide, we just want to cover a couple of quick housekeeping items for you. Before we get started, if you would, please raise your hand and let us know that you can hear us pretty clearly today, just to make sure that we've got a good, clear connection today. Excellent. Thank you. See lots of hands going up. So thank you for doing that. We want to remind everybody that the attendees are muted today, but we invite you to open the Q&A box on your Zoom ribbon, and please use that for submitting any questions during our webinar today. We will be logging questions in the Q&A box, and please don't use the chat for questions. We will monitor the Q&A box of those. We will make a copy of this webinar recording available through an addendum, and we will also be providing a copy of the slide deck to you as well. Okay, on the next slide, let's do a quick introduction of who your speakers and staff are today. My name's Tom Hay. I am part of the Outreach and Training Coordination team here at DIR, and I will be talking about the bid stamp submittal requirements this afternoon. We also have Teresa Williamson, who is our hub coordinator, and she will be covering the hub portion of the RFO today. We have Marie Cohan, who will be covering the accessibility requirements that are part of the RFO for comprehensive web development today. And we also have Vanya Ramakers, who is the procurement lead and is driving this RFO on behalf of DIR. So that is your staff of speakers for this afternoon's webinar. And we'll cover the agenda items. So we're going to cover the actual overview of the request for offer, the contents and the scope of those RFO requirements as well. We will cover the evaluation criteria, the term of the contract, the schedule of this RFO. We will cover the hub requirements, the pricing sheet, and the EIR accessibility section. You will also be provided some good general information about this request for offer. I will talk about the bid stamp portal requirements for submitting responses. We will talk about mandatory submissions. Then toward the end of the webinar, we will take a break and we will give you time to submit questions to us. We will also then cover those questions, and then Vanya will close the conference when we are finished this afternoon. So again, thank you for joining us. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Vanya to cover the RFO requirements.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are y'all doing? Trying to figure out how to lower my hand over here. Isn't that fun? Okay, there we go. Things like at work. All right, guys. For those that are joining us, I just want to remind you that the purpose of this RFO is for us to solicit responses from vendor for comprehensive web development and managed services. This is also a rebid of RFO 423, which means that there were incumbent vendors that are going to be bidding on this solicitation, as well as new vendors, which we expect to have. DIR may make multiple awards for this RFO. It all is dependent on how many responses and how many contracts we will need to provide services to our customers. Okay. Next. So here what you have is our overview of our historical sales, which is also represented in your RFO document, but we have added a couple columns for additional new sales since the RFO went out. And basically this slide is providing you with a couple things. One, the volume of this RFO is huge, as you can see, and the potential for our customers. We have plenty of customers and plenty of work for the vendors. This RFO does not guarantee any kind of dollar amount to the award contracts. That is something that each vendor, as part of the cooperative contracts, will need to develop themselves. So you will have access to the customer base, and you will have a contract, and then you will then try to get business from our customers. So that's very important to understand, because a lot of people ask me if any vendor is guaranteed any dollar amount, and the answer is no. You are going to have a contract, and you are responsible to obtain businesses under that contract. So next, this is our RFO overview, and the important things that I like to explain about this is these are documents that you will need to get familiar with, read and understand, so that if you ask questions in the next few days between now and when Q&A ends, that you will be asking concerning how to fill out these forms and what these forms means. Hopefully we'll answer most of your questions today, but these are the RFO documents. So the first document that you would read would be the RFO itself, and then we'll have a simple contract, which this contract is important to know. Don't propose any type of exemption or exceptions to this contract document. You can get familiar with, but the contract document is not finalized until we determine what is going to be in our contract. This is just to give you an idea what the contract document looks like. Appendix A is our terms and conditions, which you will read and make sure that you are okay with the terms and conditions of doing business with the state of Texas. Attachment 3 is our scope of work. Again, this is a template that our customers, when requesting work, probably will expect you to fill out as part, between the two of you, as part of your dealings of how to obtain business. And the customers will they'll fill out the scope of work, you will do the quote. So this is a template that just tells you the things that we require in order to review scope of work and to approve scope of work. So the next documents, Exhibit A through Exhibit, let me see whatever the last one is, K. Exhibit A to K are documents that you will need to fill out in order to be a responsive vendor to this solicitation. So first, Exhibit A is your respondent information, basic information about your company. B is about the history and experience of your company. C is your marketing plan to our customer base. So how are you going to reach our customers? How are you going to service our customers? And how are you going to provide them customer service? So Appendix C is Exhibit C is very important to the evaluation process of your potential contract awards. So we need to make sure that is a very well prepared document. Exhibit D is an itemized pricing sheet. We have given you several categories, and we'll go over that in detail to show you how to fill that form out. Exhibit E is a reference form. This is a reference that we like for your customers to submit to us. We are providing you with the form you will provide to your top customers, and they will send that directly to us. That form has a specific email address for your customers to submit it to us. And then Exhibit F is your liability for reference. So you're going to release and you're going to say that's okay for us to read what your customers have and to evaluate those things. Okay. Next. Exhibit G, voluntary accessibility, and there will be somebody later on this seminar that is going to go through those forms with you and what they're needed and how they need to be filled out. And I strongly recommend that you pay good attention because these are very, very important documents. Exhibit H is also part of the accessibility. Exhibit I is part of the accessibility. They will be explained by the accessibility representative of DIR. Exhibit J is our historically hub subcontracting plan. That is part of the hub section that will be explained to you. If you're not familiar with the process to doing business with the state, pay very good attention to this because hub completion of this form is one of the reasons you might not get a contract because you must be filled correctly. So please pay attention to the hub form section of this presentation. And Exhibit K, the EDGA certification form, is very self-explanatory. You can probably fill it out easy. It's something that companies do all the time, so you all should be easy to do that. Okay, next. So the request for offer, next. So let's talk about section 2.1, the term of the contract. So once you get your evaluation and you are selected to receive an award, you will get a contract from DIR that will have the first 2 years, and then you will get a renewal for 2 years, and then a renewal for 1 year, a total of a 5-year contract. Sometimes due to delay in reposting RFOs and replenishing our contracts, we will have the option to extend these contracts, but that is not the norm. It's usually just something that we do if we absolutely need to do a 60-day extension, okay? Next, our anticipated schedule. So very important to know these dates because as you know, since we receive your response electronically, there is no way to bypass the deadline. If your response is not received at the correct time, that is it. There is no going back. So please fill out your forms, start your response, do it early, submit early, so that you will make this timeline of 2 p.m. because that is very, very important, okay? Other dates to remember is November 30th. That is when your deadline for submitting questions through the bid stamp. It's very important that you do it through Bitstamp because we need to record all your questions. And then December 12 is when you will see a posting on the ESPD of the amendments. Our addendums to this RFO will include this presentation, the slide, a link for you to listen to this on YouTube. It will include answers to all the questions that we will receive today, plus any question that comes in between now and the 30th. Okay. Everybody always wants to know what happens after it closes. Well, January 16, we are going to start evaluation. The date of completion of evaluation is really unknown because we don't know how many responses we're going to receive. So depending on the response, that takes a big impact on how long it takes us to do our evaluation. But we'll keep you informed, and you can always contact me and me only during this period for any information that you might need concerning the evaluation and where we are in all of that. Strictly, that's very important that you know. You contact me and me only during this period. Next. All right, let's talk about the evaluation criteria, which is something you want to know so that you can pay attention to these things. So the first thing we're going to do on our evaluation is we are going to do an administrative review, which a lot of this is pass and fail, which says, yes, you have this, no, you don't, and then we go from there. That's round one, pass or fail, evaluation response. Anything that's incomplete, didn't meet the deadlines, doesn't have a hub plan complete, uh, all of this stuff that is required, which is shown on the RFO, and we're going to talk about that response checklist in a little bit. Phase two is the evaluation criteria for your documentation that you provided. Vendors that pass phase one will go to phase two. So your history and experience is worth 65% of the score, and your contract marketing and customer support plan is worth 35% of the score. Okay, so these are the two documents that are very critical. However, pricing, all of the other forms also are very important to the RFO. So make sure that you provide us a complete response with every single form that is required to respond to this RFO. Next. All right, so Exhibit A, as we talked about it before, this is very simple. Document is about your company. It's information that you should have easy to fill out. But the most important thing about this form is that it needs to be signed. It needs to be signed by a person that is empowered for contractually binding the response you're providing to us. Okay. Exhibit B is your history and experience concerning. Now, here's the thing that's important about this form. Don't write a book. Okay. Focus your history and experience in the subject matter that we have right now, and that is web development and managed services. So you're going to tell us your history and experience on the actual title of this RFO and what the RFO requires for you to do. We know if you've been in business 100 years and you have hundreds and tons of things to tell us about your history, but keep it simple and keep it focused on the web development portion of your experience. It's very important, okay? Exhibit B is very important to be completed, or your proposal may be rejected because we can't evaluate you if you don't have an Exhibit A and an Exhibit B, okay? And an Exhibit C, which is your contract marketing and customer support plan. Same thing, focus this on the web development customer base that you have and how you're going to serve our customers, how you're going to provide customer service. And next. Now, the Exhibit D, the itemized price sheet, something I'm going to go over in detail soon, later on in this presentation, because your price is not going to be evaluated per se on the evaluation criteria due to the complexity of web development. However, we will need to have a detailed pricing sheet in order to move you to the next stage of negotiations. And without a pricing sheet, we will not be able to complete your evaluation. Okay, so it's very important that you fill this form out completely. Your vendor references is part of providing a response, which means you need to contact your customers, send them the email with the forms. The customers will then send those forms to us under the RFO email that is on that form right now. Okay. And then we need your release of liability completed and signed in order for us to be able to review your vendor experience references. Okay. Next. So over here, you have the accessibility forms, and they will be very much detailed by the accessibility representative to show you what you need to fill out and how. These forms are very critical to the RFO response. So please fill them out first time around so that it will eliminate delaying any type of um, letters or things that we need to do with your response once the evaluations are finished. If you selected for negotiations and we're missing forms, it's very important that you, because otherwise we won't be able to contact you and take care of what's missing, what's wrong, what needs to be done. So try to fill out these forms the first time around. Makes it easier for us to do the complete evaluation. Next. So here you got your hub plan. That is one form that can totally kick you out of the next phase, because if we don't have a complete hub form and that hub is approved, we won't be able to negotiate with you. So this is a legal thing. It is a legislative mandate thing, nothing that DIR can waive or even have any exceptions to it. So fill out your hub plan, make sure that it's correct. There will be a section of the evaluation process where if there is any clarifications that you can go ahead and communicate with our hub folks and get it fixed. But just keep in mind, without a hub approved plan, we're not going to be able to move you forward. So pay attention to the hub section critically. And if you've never done this before, it's very, very important that you pay attention to the hub section, okay? And the exit certification form is very self-explanatory. On section 361 of our RFO, it explains exactly what to do. It's not a difficult form to fill out, but it's something people sometimes forget. So please make sure that that's on your checklist, okay? Next. All right, the scope of this RFO. This should be, I've got several questions via email lately about this because for some reason there's a difficult view of what we're asking for. The comprehensive web development is very clear, is you're going to develop and manage websites. There are several items in our appendix D, in our pricing sheet that brings out the types of things that are included in comprehensive web development. And we have very detailed those items in the RFO section under the RFO scope. So what I want to make sure is that you understand what this RFO is for and if your company fits that mold or not. Because a lot of people have asked questions about this and they're thinking that this is about IT service management, and this it is not IT services management or IT equipment management. This is about strictly web development, web maintenance, and you will see as we go forward on the actual scope what we're meaning by that. If you're not familiar with the DIR contract process and what this means, we will try to make it clear to you today, and you're welcome to ask any question. Now, related services is something that sometimes it gets confusing because people think sometimes warranty and maintenance agreements and support agreements. Well, related service can be just about anything that you are providing as an added value to our customers. And you're just going to list that and let her know how that is part of your response. Installation, warranty, maintenance, all of this is part of it, but there's also value added services that you can provide the customers that really makes a difference on that support that we expect you to provide our customers, okay? Next. All right. So let's talk about those categories that I was talking about earlier. What makes this web development, okay? So the first thing is very basic, web design, okay? It's very simple. It's very clear here what we're going to do. I'm not going to read this for you because you guys have read the RFO and you can see this is just very simple web design. You create and arrange a web pages, make sure that this website has all the requirements of the scope of work that your customer has required. And it talks about content, usability, appearance, visibility, search engine and other stuff. Let's go to the next slide. And then we have the website development, which is also part of that design. Once you design the website, then you're going to develop that site. Then you can also manage the name system of the site. You can do business analysis services for the site. You can do hosting of that site and cloud hosting of the site. So all of these are pieces of that comprehensive web development section. Next. So the website also have accessibility services that most of the government websites got to have as part of the law. So it's something our customers are going to ask you to be aware of it and to know it and to provide that service. So that's one of the key items of that comprehensive web development. And of course, the web content management is something that you can also provide our customers as a service as part of your. Now, these are not all of the categories that can be charged or that can be listed under web comprehensive development. So if you have other items that you provide as part of the web comprehensive web development, and you want to add that to the pricing sheet as different sections of services that you provide that's related to web development, that is okay. And we'll make sure that we'll show you where that fits. But it has to follow the scope. It has to fit within the scope, okay? Next. So what is not on the scope of this RFO? Next. Thank you. So the one thing that is not part of this RFO is cloud broker services. Okay, that is something that we have a different contract for. It's part of a whole different system and program. So this portion of our contract does not include cloud broker service. So don't list that as a service you can provide because it's not allowed. Okay. All right. Now we're going to listen from, as I told you before, please pay attention. Teresa Williamson is going to explain to you how to fill out the Hub program and the Hub forms and everything. Okay, take it over, Teresa.
Thank you, Vanya. Good afternoon. My name is Teresa Williamson. I'm the Hub program manager. Next slide. The Hub subcontracting plan, or your HSP, is controlled by the comptroller's office. This link is for a blank copy of the HSP if needed, other than the one that's already been provided on the ESBD. Next slide, please. All respondents are required to submit an HSP. Failure to submit a completed HSP that includes a signature will cause your response to be rejected. Please remember that this document is a pass or fail document. There are 3 ways to complete your HSP. You will either self-perform, meet or exceed the Hub goal and complete method A, or not meet the Hub goal and complete method B. Next slide. The Hub goal is 26% for this RFO. If your proposed subcontracting meets or exceeds that 26%, you'll complete method A. Be sure to identify all the Hubs and non-Hub vendors that you will be subcontracting with. Include the anticipated dollar amounts and expected percentages. So if you're completing method A, you'll complete sections 1, 2, 4 in method A. Please remember that a signature and a date on your section 4 is required. Next slide. Okay. If you're going to subcontract below the Hub goal, you'll complete method B. Be sure to solicit a minimum of 3 Hub certified companies and 2 minority trade organizations. You must allow them 7 working days. This does not include state holidays or weekends. 7 working days to respond to you prior to the due date of this RFO. Include your outreach with these entities, your emails, phone logs, etc., with your HSP submission. So if you're completing method B, you'll complete sections 1, 2, 4, and then the attachment for the method B, attachment B. Please don't forget that you also need to include approximate dollar amounts and percentages. Next slide. If you will be self-performing, you'll complete sections 1, 2, 3, and 4. In the self-performing justification, you identify how your company will fulfill this contract with its own staff, equipment, and resources. Please do not say in this section that you will subcontract in the future or if you need to. Just tell us how you plan to self-perform. Next slide. This is my contact information along with our hub email box. We will do a precursory review for you because please remember again, this document is a pass or fail. So we want to be here for you to assist you in filling it out. So if you want to take us up on that precursory review, please submit your completed HSP prior to your due date to either myself or to the DIR hub box. Please allow time in case you've completed the wrong method, because if you need to complete method B, remember you're required to allow those 7 business days. All right, Vanya, back over to you.
Thank you. So let's talk about the Exhibit D itemized pricing sheet. This is where it's a spreadsheet and you will fill it out on the spreadsheet and you're going to attach that spreadsheet to Bidstamp as your response. However, because our respondents must submit a pricing in Bidstamp, which most of you vendors that are here today, I'm hoping already have your Bidstamp login and you're already familiar with Bidstamp. If not, Tom will be talking more about Bidstamp later on this presentation, but now I just want to make sure that you understand that 1, this itemized pricing sheet is critical to your response. And the spreadsheet can be attached to Bidstamp. You don't have to PDF it, just the spreadsheet itself, okay? Also, when you go into Bidstamp, you're gonna have one line and one line only in Bidstamp. Your pricing sheet is gonna have tons of lines for all your services and all the things you provide. But in Bidstamp, we need you to provide us with only one line. And the reason for that is because the system, even though we're not evaluating individual pricing, the system requires that we have one line of pricing in order to move the evaluation process. So all you need to do is enter. I already have it set up. So you're going to enter one category. So it can be design, it can be development, it can be hosting, whatever service you are providing, and the discount for that service. And that's it. You're going to enter 2 lines and you're going to save it in Bidstamp. Very simple process. If you need help, there will be people that can help you prior to the 10th. And one of the things I want to make sure that you truly understand about your pricing sheet is that it has to be detailed when you submit your spreadsheet. Next. And like I said, we'll be able to help you with Bidstamp, but as far as the itemized pricing sheet is concerned, it's very important that you understand all the elements. The pricing sheet, if you have looked at it and downloaded from, I think we need to go one slide before this one. Thank you. So what we're going to do is it has 3 different envelopes at the bottom of your Exhibit D spreadsheet. So you got your instructions, your pricing sheet, and your volume discount. So you need to make sure that you fill them out correctly, okay? And you need to make sure that you enter the prices that are the company prices and not mess with the formulas. And you enter the discount and then the formulas will take care of the rest. So it's very important not to copy over the formulas. You can copy and paste to create lines. The formulas will copy down, but please don't change the formulas, okay? It's very important to do that. Also, make sure that on your pricing sheet, all the products that you list also have your VPATs and your letters of authorization to deal with those software, all the documentation required, so that when I look at your pricing sheet and I look at your documentation, I can actually match them and say, okay, they have this, they have that, and I can clear that up very quickly when I'm reviewing your response. So the more organized you put your stuff in alphabetical order, put your letters of authorization in alphabetical order, put your VPATs in alphabetical order. It makes it easier when you upload it to Bitstamp, and it makes it easier for review purpose, okay? It really helps when your pricing sheets is organized the same way your documents are, okay? So the elements that are required for your pricing sheets is your service category, which means is it design, is it development, is it hosting, what is the category? And then the service subcategory is if you're doing design, what type of design you're doing, how much of the design are you doing, how much of the design are you subcontracting. So the subcategory is important to know what are you doing as far as design is concerned. Now, I never design a website, so when I say these things, it might seem confusing, but you probably know more about it than I do. So it's important that you makes these categories and subcategories very organized. The unit of measure is very important because it's also, you have products and you have services. So make sure that unit of measure is correct, okay? Then you enter the discount, and then the customer price, like I said, is a formula. Don't mess with the formula because it already has everything that we need in order to complete the calculations. And that has to do with the next page. Let me talk about the formula, okay? So one of the things about the formula that it's already in place is our discounted price includes our fees to DIR. So when you see the price calculating on your Exhibit D, itemized pricing sheet, you will see that it already gets this formula in it. So it's important that you do not change that formula, okay? Next. All right, so very quickly, we talked about these attachments. They're simple sample of contracts. Appendix A is something your legal department is going to have to look at it carefully in order for them to go ahead and prepare your exemptions. Be careful with exemptions. Too many exemptions might disqualify you from negotiations. So if you already done business with us, keep that in mind. And then your scope of work is also a template. So just keep these documents in mind. And as I said, the contract for products and services can be adjusted depending on what we are going to negotiate at the next phase of this RFO solicitation. Next. Thank you. And of course, I talked about the terms and conditions. You should be very familiar with that document. And then the scope of work as a template. Just keep in mind about the exceptions, because excessive exceptions can really disqualify you from doing business with the state of Texas. Our terms and conditions are very legislative driven and required by law. So just keep that in mind when your legal people are looking at our standards, terms and conditions, and working on all of these exemptions, okay? Next. Now we're going to turn this over to Mary, and she is going to talk to you about our accessibility forms.
Thank you, Vanya. Hello, everyone. I'm Marie Cohan. I lead the statewide digital accessibility program, and I'm going to walk you through the 3 components of your accessibility response for this particular solicitation. Next, please. So just a little bit of background around accessibility. EIR stands for Electronic and Information Resources. You'll also hear DIR refer to it as digital accessibility. They should be treated as the same. Under Texas Government Code 2054, DIR has authority to create rules regarding digital accessibility, and those can be found in 1 TAC 206 and 1 TAC 213. TAC 206 is specifically focused on website accessibility. TAC 213 is specifically focused on other types of EIR, electronic information resources. We also follow the World Wide Web Consortium with WCAG 2.0 AA, that is the state baseline standard. And what these rules and statutes are for is to ensure that all Texans have access to the information that we share on our websites as agencies and institutions of higher education. We want to make sure that regardless of a person's ability, they can access government information from the state of Texas. So your packet response related to EIR accessibility will have 3 components, and those must be provided in response to technology solicitations. Next slide, please. So the 3 documents that we look for, one is an accessibility conformance report. This is required for all commercial products. That includes SaaS applications, PaaS applications, managed services, anything like that. The ACR is created once the voluntary product accessibility template is complete, or VPAT. The VPAT is simply a template that's provided by the industry. Once it's completed based on testing of the product, it'll determine how the product conforms to the WCAG success criteria, and that will be your ACR, and that is what DIR requires. We also look for a VADSER for services. These types of services are non-cost offerings or non-commercial product offerings. Anything that is customized development, website development falls in that category, or any kind of other bespoke services will fall under the services requirement. The document that we request is a vendor accessibility development services information request. This is a form that was created by DIR. It helps us understand what your product development lifecycle looks like, what any contingency action plans you have in place, alternate means of accommodating someone who, if there's a gap in accessibility compliance, and any kind of policies and procedures that you may have within your organization. The third item is the policy-driven adoption for accessibility self-assessment. This was created by NASCIO, and it's been in effect for several years. This is a spreadsheet self-assessment. It'll go through, very similar to the VADSER document, what is your organization's view on accessibility? What policies and procedures do you have in place as an organization? What kind of training do you have contingency plans in place for accessibility gaps? Anything along those lines. And it really is just focused on the organization's journey towards accessibility maturity. This has no connection to a service or a product. This is simply a self-assessment of where the organization is on their accessibility journey. All 3 of these documents, I'll go into more detail. All 3 of these documents make up your EIR accessibility packet. They will, the first 2 documents, the ACR and the VADSER, will be scored on completeness. And that means, did they get turned in, and are they turned in complete? And the second score will be on the credibility of the information that is provided. The PDAA has a score that is created once you complete the self-assessment. We also look for completion on this document as well. All 3 of these documents will receive a final pass-fail and a credibility level score, and that will be added into the pass-fail scoring on the entire solicitation. Next slide, please. So we're going to talk about the voluntary product accessibility template. This is an industry standard. It is a template that has WCAG success criteria on there and performance criteria. This can be completed by anyone. Preferably, it's completed by someone who is very familiar with the product and how the product performs. They will go through and answer the questions and list out, does their product support the success criteria, not support, partially support. We do look for explanations for anything that does not support. We don't look for explanations on not applicable. But if you have a score of partially support, we prefer that there is an explanation in there of why it does not fully support that success criteria. VPATs or ACRs are required for every single product that you're submitting in your solicitation response. DIR will review a sample of these ACRs that are submitted, so it will not review every single one. We'll take a sample, but they are required to be submitted for every single product, even different versions of a particular product. For example, if I'm Apple and I'm submitting for multiple iPads, I would need an ACR for each version of the iPad. Let's see. The ACR that you submit will be reviewed by DIR at the time of the solicitation response. If you are eventually awarded a contract, I just mentioned that agencies or any of our customers who decide to purchase off of that contract have the right to request a new ACR from the vendor at any point in time, and that is listed in TAC. Next slide, please. So the Vendor Accessibility Development Services Information Request, this is a form that is, we request it be completed by the vendor that it will be performing any kind of web development services, any kind of customization, any kind of specific application development for an agency. And again, this will let us know what your product development lifecycle looks like, how you will respond if there are any gaps in accessibility compliance, what alternate means will you provide for your product if there is a gap in accessibility, if there is any kind of failure or errors, how does the customer contact you to get it resolved? These are the types of questions that you'll see on this form, and this is required for any type of service that's not related to a commercial product. I'm looking at this, I'm going to mention, because I'm a little bit familiar with website development. So if you have a vendor that comes in and is building a website, they're going to complete the VADSR. If as part of their solicitation response, they know that there may be a product offering as well, for example, a content management product or some kind of hosting product that they use, those will need to have a ACR submitted with the response. Next slide, please. The PDAA, or Policy Driven Adoption for Accessibility, is a self-assessment of the organization on their accessibility maturity journey. It is based off the PDAA maturity model, which can be found on our website. This is not tied to a specific product or service that the vendor is offering. This is specifically on the organization and their understanding of digital accessibility. They will score the different categories between 0 and 3, and there will be a final score at the bottom that we will add to the evaluation. You can find the template on the DIR website. Next slide, please. These are resources that may be helpful to you. It includes all of the templates that I've mentioned. It includes information for vendors that are engaging in procurements with DIR. And it also includes the digital accessibility website pages as well. Next slide, please. This is my contact information. I can also be reached by emailing statewide-accessibility@dir.texas.gov. And I'll just ask if you reach out to me with any questions on your accessibility packet, if you would please include the procurement representative that is handling this procurement as well. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Marie. Let's switch gears here a little bit and talk about the general information and bid submittal as part of this information. Again, my name's Tom Hay and I'm covering for Stephanie Harrison today. So a couple of reminders when it comes to responding to this RFO is to, when you're asking questions, when you have that period to ask questions, please reference the RFO page number and the section number when you are submitting questions to DIR in reference to this RFO. Also, a couple of reminders that webinar participants today, you can submit your questions electronically at any time during our webinar. Again, please use the question and answer tab. Questions and answers that are answered today, reminder, they are unofficial until they are posted on the ESBD in the form of an addendum. So be sure to check the ESBD often for updates. And all questions regarding this RFO must be submitted in writing through the Bidstamp Vendor Information System portal by November 30th, 2022 at 5 p.m. Central Time. Next slide. We've talked about disqualification factors previously, but just a reminder that these are some of the issues that can affect your disqualification. A failure to sign the respondent information form, which is Exhibit A. Also, a failure to complete the financial information section, including a DUNS number. A failure to complete the historically underutilized business or your hub subcontracting plan. Failure to complete and submit the Exhibit D, which is your itemized pricing sheet. Also, failure to submit on or before the due date. And a reminder that you may not contact any other DIR employees regarding this RFO other than the designated contacts that are listed in the documents. Also, any vendors responding to this RFO must submit the responses through the Bidstamp information portal. So these documents should all be signed and scanned and then entered through the Bidstamp vendor information system. Next slide. Again, respondents and all respondent representatives shall not attempt to discuss the contents of this RFO with any employees or representatives of DIR other than the designated contacts. Failure to observe this may result in disqualification of any related responses. Next slide. Here's the contact information for inquiries regarding the RFO. You may contact Vanya Raymakers. For contacts for the vendor information systems or Bidstamp portal, you can direct those to Stephanie Harrison here at DIR. And then for questions on your hub subcontracting plan, you may contact Teresa Williamson or the DIR hub box. Next slide. So a couple of reminders on submitting your responses is that any respondent responding to this RFO, you must submit your responses through the Bidstamp vendor information system. Now, before any vendors can access the use of Bidstamp, you are required to provide login credentials to access either a new or an existing account. Vendors can access the Bidstamp portal at the link we have provided here, and you can then enter in your access credentials there at that link. If you are a vendor that does not yet have login credentials, you will request one by clicking on the "Are you a vendor and need to request account" button, and that is located on the login page on the previous link. You can also watch a video on how to set up your Bidstamp account, and we have provided that link to you on the DIR webpage. So please note that if you have previously created a Bidstamp account, you can use the same account. If you've not previously requested a Bidstamp account, or your account information maybe has changed, maybe your email has changed or your business name, then you will need to create a new account, because this is not just an automatic approval process. Please allow a couple of business days for your account to be approved. So, excuse me. So that means you can't, wait until the day responses are due to set up your Bidstamp account. You need to plan, make sure that you have received your login credentials, prior to the due date for the RFO. And if you have not received your Bidstamp login credentials, then please contact your point of contact listed in the RFO. Again, this link will take you to the video on how to set up your Bidstamp account. So we won't go into the details on that. We'll just provide you the link. Okay, next slide. So persons with disabilities who seek accommodation under the Americans with Disabilities Act, or the ADA, and responding to the solicitation may contact DIR at the point of contact in section 3.1 of the solicitation. Please allow 5 days for response. Excuse me, I've got a cough for a minute. Okay, sorry about that. Next slide. So you can access the Bidstamp portal through the DIR website by navigating to the home page and then clicking on the Selling Through DIR function, and that will take you to the Schedule of Solicitation Opportunities page. So once you click on that Selling Through DIR, you will be taken to the slide on the next page. And you'll see that schedule of solicitation opportunities box there. And once you click on that link, next slide, you will see when you scroll down that the vendor bid stamp guide is posted on the schedule of solicitation opportunities page. That is also where you can request credentials for bid stamp access if you do not yet have your bid stamp account set up. Okay, so this is the page you will see once you click on that. After your vendor account is enabled, vendors can then submit and manage RFO responses from that bid stamp vendor information system portal page. Reminder that the portal does allow you to have up to 5 users, but you must use the login credentials that you received after you set up your bid stamp account in order to log into this page. Okay, next slide. So in order to submit your responses once your account is enabled, you can then manage the RFO responses from the vendor information portal page. And once you click on this page, you'll want to click on Open Solicitations. And once you click on that, and if you go to the next slide, what you will see here is the list of current open solicitations that DIR has posted in the bid stamp portal. And the one that you will want to reference for this RFO is number DIR-CPO-TMP-564. And once you see that listed, again, you can see all the open RFOs that are listed on the DIR webpage. So once you click on that RFO that you are going to respond to, this slide here shows you some pretty pertinent information regarding that RFO. You'll see several buttons that are in gray here, like the respond, ask a question, subscribe, and view solicitations. And we're going to walk through those here in just a minute. But it's important that you pay attention to the date and the time that responses are due. A reminder that all times are Central Time, so allow yourself enough time for any technical issues or things like that, because once the date and time have passed, BidStamp will no longer allow you to submit your responses. And that's true even if you're in the middle of submitting a response. So if it times out, you will not be able to submit a response if you're in the middle of it. So please plan accordingly. So on the next slide, we're going to talk about some of those buttons. The first one was respond to a solicitation or view response. This is where you can create a new response or even view a response that is in progress that you're working on. So if your response has already been created or started, this button will read as view response and allow you to resume your progress on an existing RFO response. You can also ask questions through that button, and that allows vendors to submit questions to be reviewed by a DIR resource. Questions can be submitted up until the question submission deadline date. That's indicated in the RFO document and on the detail page as well. Vendors can also subscribe to solicitations on this page as well. If you'd like to receive addendum notifications, to subscribe to the solicitation, you must first select the subscribe to solicitation button and also have enabled your contact to receive notifications. Again, you can allow 5 contacts to be in BidStamp, so make sure that those are both activated. You can also view solicitation documents that will navigate you to the ESBD postings for that solicitation, and then you can view the solicitation documents as well. So as a reminder, the ESBD is the official location for all response materials for the RFO. So please check the ESBD for any addendums to the RFO that are posting throughout the solicitation process. Okay, next slide. So you will see under the RFO several buttons. Those include the delete button. You can delete all the information that has been uploaded in the response record before the response has been submitted. But a reminder that if you delete it, we cannot get it back. So you can't call us and say, oops, I accidentally hit delete. Can you get my response back? No, we cannot get it back. So once your response has been submitted, you must then use the withdraw button that will appear upon submitting your solicitation if you wish to withdraw your submission that you have submitted. The submit button, that submits the response record and all the associated information. You can reference that in the vendor guide in section 5.7. You can ask a question, and those can be submitted up until the question submission deadline that is indicated in the RFO document and on the detail page. You can create your pricing form in here to submit the pricing information for your response. And Vanya has already talked about the Appendix D, which is the itemized pricing form. And Vanya, I believe they will need to make an entry in the bid stamp portal as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
They'll have to create a pricing sheet and enter at least one item.
Okay. So that's where you will create your pricing form in bid stamp. Also for RFO response documents, you can upload the required fields indicated in the RFO and that are posted to the ESBD. Again, you can view that information in the vendor guide. And there, you can also submit new vendor or new reference email addresses and opt to send the vendor a reference form through the bid stamp portal as well. So just a couple of reminders. It's highly, recommended that you name your required response documents exactly as the name as what they were named in the RFO, so you don't miss loading a required document. It's also recommended that you load the documents in the format that they were provided as exhibits in the RFO, like if it's a Word or an Excel document. Many times converting documents to a PDF will truncate the document and therefore leading off important information that might be needed for the response. So those documents need to be considered complete. And also, if you're using the electronic signature function, please be sure that there's a valid electronic signature and not just a typed name in the signature field. That typed name is not allowed. If you're not able to include a valid or verified electronic signature on pages where a signature is required, you may need to print that page, ink sign it, and then upload a copy into the bid stamp portal. Okay, next slide. A couple of reminders on the response contents. You must provide the items below. Your Exhibit A is your respondent information, and that must be signed. Your Exhibit A includes also any canceled contracts, which is attachment 1, if that is applicable to you. Your Exhibit B is the respondent history and experience. Your Exhibit C is your contract marketing and customer support plan. Your Item D is your itemized pricing sheet. Your Exhibit E is vendor references. Your Exhibit F is the respondent release of liability for reference. Your Exhibit G is your VPAT form, your voluntary product accessibility template. Next slide is Item H, which is your VADSER form for non-commercial off-the-shelf items. Your Exhibit I is the vendor accessibility policy assessment form, which is your PDAA. Your Exhibit J is your historically underutilized hub subcontracting plan. Exhibit K is your EDGAR certification form. You will also need to upload any manufacturer's letters for any brands you're proposing, any software license agreements or service agreements if they're applicable, any exceptions requested to the Exhibit A or affirmative statement of the respondent takes no exceptions, and then any signed addenda to the RFO. Okay, next slide. And a reminder that Section 3.19 of the RFO states that DIR has sole discretionary authority and reserves the right to reject any and all responses received as a result of this RFO. Responses that do not comply with the mandatory submission requirements may be rejected. In addition, DIR reserves the right to accept or reject in whole or in part any responses submitted and to waive minor technicalities when in the best interest of the state. Okay, next slide. We have come to the end of our presentation for the first part. So let's take a little break here for about 10 minutes. It's 2:05. Why don't we come back at 2:15? And at this point, go ahead and enter your questions into the Q&A box. Again, reference any section numbers or page numbers in the RFO with your submitted questions. Reminder, submitted questions today are not are unofficial until they are posted to the ESBD in the form of an addendum. You may submit additional questions through the Bidstamp vendor information portal as well. So with that, let's take 10 minutes. We'll come back at 2:15 and we will address your questions. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you in a bit. Okay, welcome back, everybody. It is 2:15. So again, go ahead and put your questions into the Q&A box. And we will take some time now to read through the questions and provide some answers to you today. Again, questions answered today are unofficial until they are posted on the ESBD through an addendum. So Kyle?
Yeah, so the first question we have, Vanya, this is specifically for you. It says on the Exhibit D slide, you referred to a required letter of authorization. Can you please explain this requirement and where is that template document?
Letter of authorizations are usually something that a reseller has from the software company that they are authorized to resell the products. So there is no format. Usually a letter of authorization comes from the software provider to the vendor that says, yes, you are authorized to sell this product. And that's what we need. If the vendors are going to only respond to services under this RFO, then they do not need to provide letters of authorization. However, if any of their packages include any software license being sold or passed on to our customers, then yes, we need a letter of authorization validating that that vendor is authorized by the software company to resell their software. I hope that answers the question.
All right, and the next question we have, they're asking if we can provide a list of all the names of the bidders who are attending today's webinar event.
That will be provided with the addendum.
The next question is, this process is entirely new for my company. Once submitted through BidStamp, if something is wrong during the approval process, will I be contacted and have the opportunity to correct the issues?
After the bid opening, not before.
All right.
So I would strongly recommend that if you're brand new, that you either contact me and ask any questions you have concerning the submission of your package to make sure it's correct. The number one things that have to be correct with your package is the signed document needs to be in there. We can work with you of anything that is missing or anything that's wrong once the evaluation is completed and you move on to the negotiation.
Okay. Let's see. The next question we have, will answers to questions come on a rolling basis, understanding that the deadline for vendor questions is November 30th and DIR plans to respond to all questions by December 12th?
I understand that vendors are submitting their proposals and they want answers as they ask the questions. I will provide answers. However, they will not be official until they're on the addendum. However, any questions that require answers for vendors to continue preparing their solicitation ahead of time, they will have those answers, but they will not be official until they're posted.
Let's see, next question. Are contracts awarded to only DIR vendors? What is the advantage of becoming a DIR vendor?
No, this is a process for vendors to become. There is no such thing as a DIR vendor. There's only vendors with DIR contracts. So yes, we will award contracts to any vendor that qualifies and passes the evaluation process. There is no such thing as a DIR vendor list.
Okay, this next question, hopefully I'm reading this correctly. They're asking 1.3.7 current contracts. How many current vendors does DIR have for the comprehensive web development and managed services?
Just give me 1 second and I will have that answer. We received 43 responses on the RFO that was previously. The previous RFO for the same services, and we awarded, I believe, 20 contracts. So just give me a second and I will give you that number. I was just working on getting that number for you. All right, so I think we have 25 total awarded contracts out of the 43 that responded.
Okay, let's see. The next question, will you post the webinar slides to ESBD soon, or will vendors need to wait until December 12th?
Usually we do it with the addendum, but if the vendors feel that it's important to get it sooner than November 12th to help them with their responses, I can certainly post a quick addendum with whatever I have before the 12th, if that is a requirement, to help the vendors out. But otherwise, the slides will be posted with the addendum on November 12th.
Okay. And then I believe this has already been answered, but just follow up, will we be providing a recording of this call?
Yes.
All
We'll
right.
provide a link to the YouTube
Mhm.
recording.
Okay. And then the last one that we currently have in Q&A, and please feel free to keep sending if you have questions. The last one says the pricing is to be uploaded in Bidstamp, but we need to enter just one line item on Bidstamp. Is that correct?
The pricing sheet needs to be filled out and turned in as a spreadsheet. Bidstamp only requires one line item. That is correct.
Perfect. So that's the last one we have in Q&A. I don't see anything else coming through.
Alan, I see your hand is raised. If you would, go ahead and put your question in the Q&A box if you had a question, or maybe you just mistakenly raised your hand. I don't know. But if you do have a question, Alan, please put it in the Q&A box.
And Vanya, we did get a follow-up just regarding the recording. Is there the exact time and posting for the recording, and where can they find that? Is that going to be directly on the YouTube page, or will you also be attaching that somewhere else?
Tom, can you help me with that question?
Yes, the video will be uploaded to the DIR YouTube channel, and Vanya will be providing that link to all the attendees and all the registrants of this webinar. So you will be able to click on a link and view the recording of this video on the YouTube channel. We just don't have it uploaded yet. We've got to do that work yet.
And then we have two more that came in. So what is the estimated pre-approved budget for this solicitation contract?
There is no budget for this contract. This is a cooperative contract for the DIR program. This is a $0 contract from DIR point of view. However, our customers and our customer base, whoever's asking this question, I want to get familiar with the DIR cooperative contract program through our website. And if you have any other question about it, let me know. But our customers have budgets for their projects that's been pre-approved by the legislative. I do not have access to that information.
Okay, and then we've got just two more questions here. So can we use offshore resources?
Yeah, that I was hoping it'd be a legal question answered.
Maybe we want to get back to them on this.
Yeah, I think the offshore resources, I'm not sure, because the RFO strictly says you have to be a Texas-based company. You have to have a DUNS number. You have to be part of the state
Vanya?
Secretary of a state. Yes.
Hi, this is Mary. I just wanted to comment on the offshore resources.
Thank you.
If the vendor will look at their Appendix A, there is a section under the standard terms and conditions that outlines data location. And because there's some there's some stricter guidelines for state agency customers as opposed to local governments K through 12. So I would recommend you looking at the data location information that's listed in the attachment A, the standard terms and conditions.
Also, if this offshore resources, you're talking about your programmers or your developers being offshore working online, I will hope that our legal department can put a good answer to that. So I will make sure to have that on our Q&A posting addendum from legal, okay?
Okay, is there an incumbent bidding on this solicitation?
There are, I don't know how many will bid, but there's 43 incumbent vendors that bid before that are gonna bid again, I'm sure. That doesn't mean they're gonna get a contract though, it just means that they had a contract before.
Let's see. Oh, and then I think this is a follow-up for the offshore question. They're asking, we are in Florida with no Texas office. Can we bid?
That's another question. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, as long as if you look at your requirements in the statement of work, on one of the documents, you must have the ability to conduct business with the state of Texas. And there is information in the exhibits regarding that. You can be an out-of-state vendor, but you must be certified through the Secretary of State that you are able to do business in the state of Texas.
Perfect.
Thanks,
And there's another question in here, and I think that kind of answered it as well, but they're just saying, can you clarify the RFO states you must be a Texas-based company?
Yes, that is
so you need to be able to do business in the state of Texas, correct?
Yeah, correct. Do you have Mark, do you have a specific section where you're seeing it states must be a Texas-based company?
No, I said that, Mary.
Oh, okay.
So we're correcting me.
Okay, all right.
Okay, we have a few more questions in here. For Exhibit A, it asks for a social security number. Is a federal ID okay?
Yes.
All right. And then let's see, that's already been answered, asking about providing a list of all of the bidders on this webinar today. We are a certified MBE and a DBE, so do we still need a hub plan?
Yes.
Hi, this is Teresa. Yes, it doesn't matter if you're a hub or non-hub. All vendors are required to submit a completed signed HSP.
Right, and then this is right now the last one we have in here. It says, what is the admin fee for contracts awarded?
I need that question clarified before I answer. Are you talking about the vendor paying DIR to receive a contract?
Mark, if you can give us some clarification on that question.
Can we real quick, go back to the previous question that was asked earlier about the social security number and if a federal EIN could be used? The social security number question is specific to certain requirements that's outlined in item 11. It relates to individuals and not the company. So if you are part of this requirement, if you're subject to this providing this information, you would need to provide your that employee or that owner's social security number. You can obviously mark that copy, make sure that you're marking that page is confidential,
So any clarifications on that fee question?
Let's see. So yeah, I think we just got one in. So is there a percentage fee charged of the total amount of any work contracts awarded to a vendor? For example, 0.75%, 1%, etc.
So the answer is there is a percentage fee that it's applied to our customer as the vendor pays DIR, the 0.75 that is on section or part of the contract. I think it's section 3 of the contract. Hold on. Under the sample contract that you guys have on section, give me a minute. I am going to tell you exactly where it is, the section. All right, so the simple contract document under section pricing, pricing index, DIR discount to customer, change in pricing, and then there is the fee, DIR fee, number 6. So under the contract simple document, section 6, it talks about the DIR administrative fee that is added to the customer quote, and then you pay DIR. It explains right there, section 6, DIR administrative fee under the contract document. Does that answer his question?
Yeah, and I believe that was the last question that we have in here. Would you like me to go to the next slide?
I guess,
Okay.
Tom?
Sure.
Okay.
And Mark did say yes, that was helpful with that answer. So thank you for that, Vanya. Alan said thank you as well. Very helpful.
Okay. So I guess I am going to go ahead and bring us to an end. So I wanted to remind everyone that all the answers today that we talked about are not going to be official until they're posted on the ESPD. The answers won't change. Some of them will just be more clarified and more. It will be referencing the RFO and giving you direction as to the answers that we've given you today. Anything that we change on this RFO will be posted on the ESPD. There are ways for you to get emails from Bidstamp of things that have changed or addendums that's been posted. However, you must always remember ESPD is the official document, so you cannot say, I didn't get that addendum. It is not our responsibility to make sure that you have all the addendums to an RFO prior to your response. So one of the things you need to make sure is to upload every single one of the addendums with your signature on it that you received them. That is part of your response. Next. Great. So remind you guys about our dates. Like I said, we have questions until the 30th. We'll answer them all by the 12th. That gives you guys almost a whole month before you can change any of your response documents or anything. We will try to answer questions as we go, but they're not official until they're posted. Okay, next. And I am the contact and the sole contact person for this RFO. You can email me and I will try to answer your questions and add them to our questions and answers addendums so that we can provide every vendor the same answers. Okay. Next. All right. That wraps up our pre-proposal conference. Is there anything else we can help you guys with before we go? All right, Tom, I guess you can stop the recording and we're done. Thank you, everybody, for all your help.
Thank you all.